Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take complex topics like the recent Iran-Israel escalation and really break them down for you.
That's right. We want to help you get past the headlines.
We've got some fascinating sources today. They cover everything from ancient history in the region, the modern proxy war, all the way to these really intense online debates about civilian casualties.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
Our mission really is to understand the layers here, the history, the current situation, the moral questions. Just get to what's important.
Exactly. And we'll see how these old patterns of conflict maybe still echo today. It's not just what's happening, but why it matters.
Yeah.
And thinking about the human side of it all, too.
Okay, so let's dive in. Our first source, it actually takes us way back, like 2,500 years, to the Persian Empire.
Yeah.
And it talks about this long history of what it calls assassination politics.
It's pretty striking. Starting way back in the 6th century BC with Cyrus I, who founded the empire, you see these internal power struggles turning violent.
Like assassinations.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Xerxes I, for example, assassinated by his own commander in 465 BC. Even Darius I, a huge figure, his rise involved an assassination plot. And it didn't stop there. Later on, Artaxerxes III and his heir, poisoned by their general. Then you jump forward to the Sassanid Empire.
Centuries later,
Yeah. Khusrev II, killed by his son. And that son then supposedly ordered the murder of like 18 of his own brothers just to clear the field.
Wow, that's ruthless.
It is. And the key point the source makes is that these internal conflicts, these purges, they consistently weaken the empires, made them, more vulnerable to outside threats. A real lesson there about internal stability.
So, okay, that's the ancient history, but you said this pattern continued. It gets really interesting here with this medieval group. It sounds almost like fiction.
Oh, absolutely. The thread keeps going. In 1092, you have the assassination of Nizam al-Mulk. He was the vizier, basically the prime minister of the Seljuk Empire.
And who did it?
A group called the Hashashis. They were this very secretive, disciplined group linked to the Ismaili sect.
Right.
And they became infamous across the Middle East for these incredibly precise, targeted killings of political figures, often used disguises, infiltrated courts.
Well, like spies almost.
Kinda, yeah. And the source calls this pattern of intrigue and assassination a defining feature of the political landscape there. It apparently continued in different ways through the Safavid era and even echoes into modern times.
So this history, this sort of preference for targeted, maybe indirect action, how does that connect to what's happening now? Between Iran and Israel, our sources call it a proxy war that's now turning direct.
Well, you can definitely see parallels. Iran, maybe recognizing it can't win a conventional head-to-head fight with Israel easily, has built up this whole network of proxies.
Like Hezbollah, Hamas.
Exactly. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza, the Houthis down in Yemen. Iran supports them money, weapons, training.
And the goal is?
They call it forward defense. It's about deterrence, projecting power across the region, maybe keeping the fight away from Iranian soil. It lets them strike at Israel indirectly through these groups.
Okay. And Israel's response, they haven't just sat back, obviously.
No, definitely not. Israel's response has been very assertive too, but often using different kinds of methods, not always large-scale invasions.
Like what?
Well, the sources mention things like supporting Iranian rebel groups, cyber attacks, sabotage.
Just cyber attacks, right. I remember reading about ports being disrupted.
Yeah, exactly. The Shahid Rajeh port in 2020, that caused huge backups. And then steel companies hit in 2022. Plus, there were those mysterious explosions back in 2020 at places like the Natanz nuclear facility.
Right, trying to slow down their nuclear program.
That seemed to be the goal. Intelligence sources speculated it might have set them back a year or two. And Israel also routinely hits targets in Syria, trying to stop weapons transfers from Iran to Hezbollah.
And this strategy also includes targeting individuals, right? Specifically Iranian nuclear scientists.
Yes. That's the really contentious part of it.
And one source draws this really provocative comparison.
Right. The historian Michael Burley. He compared these assassinations to the Allies bombing Nazi V-2 rocket sites in World War II.
How so?
His point was basically that scientists working on weapons programs aren't just neutral researchers. Their work has real-world consequences. He essentially argued that targeting them was strategically justified, even saying he wouldn't shed any tears for them. A very stark view.
Wow. But there's another side to that coin presented in the sources, too.
Absolutely. Paul Coring's perspective is also cited, and he talks about the chilling impact this has. It makes it harder to recruit scientists for sensitive work in Iran, And he points to the very real human cost, the trail of grief.
Like the story of the widow?
Exactly. Shohreh Pirani, whose husband Dariush Reznejad was killed, her young daughter drawing pictures of the attack. It really brings home the personal tragedy behind the geopolitics.
It certainly does. That difference in perspective is huge. Okay. So this history, this ongoing shadow war, it leads us right up to the recent events, the big escalation, June 13th, 2025.
Yeah, a major turning point. Israel launched this surprise attack deep inside Iran.
Targeting military sites, nuclear facilities, killing top leaders and scientists.
Yes. Apparently timed during U.S.-Iran nuclear talks, maybe for maximum surprise. And Iran's response was immediate.
Drones, missiles, aimed at Israeli cities.
Right. Israel intercepted a lot with Iron Dome and Arrow, but some got through. Reports said 24 killed in Israel.
And Iran's reported toll, much higher.
Yeah. Iranian reports mentioned 224 deaths on their side, significant damage reported on both sides. And then President Trump weighed in, basically telling Iran to make a deal or face destruction, reinforcing that pro-Israel stance.
So this direct clash, it obviously had huge immediate consequences, but it also sparked something else, didn't it? These intense online debates.
Oh, absolutely. The sources really dig into this, especially around the question of civilian deaths. There was this Reddit thread you shared asking point blank if justifying civilian deaths in Israel is just as bad as justifying them in Gaza.
It's a really difficult question, and just to be clear, we're reporting on what these discussions contain, not endorsing any of these justifications ourselves.
Definitely not. It's about understanding the arguments people were making, however troubling.
So what were some of those arguments? How did people try to justify or at least explain targeting civilians?
Well, one line of argument focused on Israel's mandatory military service. Some users claimed essentially that every Israeli is connected to the military somehow currently serving, reserve duty, or future recruit.
Implying they aren't really civilians.
That was the implication some were trying to make. But the source itself pushes back hard on that. Points out that only around 60% actually serve, many in non-combat roles, and Arab Israelis mostly don't serve. Some in the discussion called that whole line of reasoning a genocidal talking point.
Strong words. What else came up? Arguments about precision.
Yes, that was another big one. People asking, how can Israel pull off a pinpoint assassination of a scientist, but then cause widespread damage when targeting militants in Gaza?
Burning down the block idea.
Right. The counter-argument presented in the sources points to Hamas's strategy of embedding military infrastructure, like tunnels, right under civilian areas, homes, schools, hospitals.
The human shield argument.
Exactly. Which makes purely precise strikes incredibly difficult, leading to civilian casualties even with advanced weapons. Plus, some sources flat out state that Iranian proxies deliberately target civilians. Another viewpoint was that Israel wouldn't have been hitting Gaza so hard if Hamas only targeted military sites.
A very complex blame game. What about the issue of settlements or living in disputed areas?
That brought up the historical dimension again. Some argued that Israelis living on land, Palestinians consider stolen share guilt for the Nakba, the 1948 displacement.
Collective guilt.
That's how others framed it, yeah. Calling it collective punishment and dangerous. Arguing that guilt isn't inherited and not every Israeli supports every government action. There was a strong pushback against justifying any civilian deaths.
Like that quote.
Yeah, you're either against civilian deaths or you are not. You don't get to pick and choose. A call for basic moral consistency.
Looking at these raw, often angry discussions, what stood out to you beyond the specific points?
Just the sheer emotion, really. The grief, rage, moral exhaustion people talked about, but also sometimes glimpses of nuance.
Like what?
Well, the idea that there are good people and innocent victims on both sides. Some Israelis talking about how hard it is to deprogram from seeing Arabs only as enemies. Some Palestinians acknowledging Israelis who actively support Palestinian rights.
So not everyone fits the stereotypes.
Not at all. And the strongest underlying feeling from many seemed to be that celebrating any civilian death is just wrong. That violence just breeds more violence and suffering no matter who's doing it.
A sort of desperate plea for empathy, maybe? Beyond the human cost, though, this escalation also hit global markets, right?
Oh, immediately. It was described as opening a Pandora's box. Huge concerns about international chaos. Oil prices reacted violently.
It spiked quite a bit.
Yeah, West Texas Intermediate jumped 14% briefly. The big worry is instability in oil supplies, especially through the Strait of Hormuz.
Which is vital for global oil.
Absolutely. About 20% of the world's oil goes through there right past Iran. Any disruption, conflict, blockade, whatever, sends shockwaves through the global economy. Oil prices, shipping costs, inflation, it's all connected. Investors get very nervous.
So wrapping this up, we've gone from ancient Persia's assassination politics right through to this modern, high-tech, and incredibly dangerous conflict between Iran and Israel.
Yeah, conflict fought with proxies, cyber attacks, targeted killings.
And spilling over into direct, devastating attacks, fueling these really intense online debates about morality, guilt, and who counts as a civilian.
It just underscores the massive complexity. History, national security, personal grief, digital anger, it all collides. And it forces these really tough questions about accountability, about warfare today, about how you separate individuals from state actions.
It really does. It feels like even with all our technology, some of these basic drivers of conflict haven't changed much over centuries.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it?
In a world just flooded with information, often pushing us into different camps, what's your takeaway about how these cycles keep going and maybe how we as individuals can try to navigate the moral maze of it all?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think acknowledging the complexity, like we've tried to do here, is a start. Resisting easy answers or blaming entire populations. Recognizing the shared humanity, even amidst the horror. It's difficult, maybe seems naive, but perhaps it's the only way to even imagine breaking these cycles. It forces you to think critically about the narratives you consume and the inherent biases we all carry when looking at conflicts like this one.